File item 25, AB 2119.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to express my appreciation to my colleagues and to the Chair for this deference. I do have a witness who needs to catch a flight back to San Diego, so I appreciate your indulgence, Madam Chair. Thank you so much for allowing me to present AB 2119, an important bill that ensures transgender and gender nonconforming youth in foster care have access to appropriate health care and behavioral health care services. Many of you know that these children are overrepresented in California's foster care system, and unfortunately, bias and misinformation often creates substantial barriers to these children receiving the medically necessary care that they need. Current law requires child welfare agencies to provide for all health needs of all young people in foster care and make sure that they receive appropriate and timely care by professionals. AB 2119 requires child welfare agencies to provide that same access to clinicians who provide gender-affirming treatment consisting with established levels of care. Madam Chair, I know you're pressed for time, and I would like to give the rest of my time to my witnesses. So if I may, I'd like to start with Alex Chen, who is with the National Center for Lesbian Rights, and Priscilla Vidal, who is a human rights activist and former foster care youth.
Very good. 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 people. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Priscilla. I was placed in foster care as a teenager from 1996 to 2002. While in the foster care system, I lived in 12 different placements in 6 years, both foster homes and in group homes. I have always identified as a woman, yet none of my placements affirm my gender identity. In one foster home, my Catholic family housed me in the garage, while other foster children, including some of my siblings, were given rooms in the home. None of my caregivers or social workers acknowledge my gender identity or use female pronouns. They insisted on calling me by the name on my records. Despite these conditions, I transitioned at 16 and began wearing girls' clothes to school. I faced rejection at school as well, where I had to fight to attend the prom as an openly transgender person. I was labeled as mentally ill and acting out, and then required to see a psychiatrist who never asked me what I needed and wanted. At that time, there were no transition-related services available to foster youth. Without access to services, I learned to obtain hormones from my friends. Sometimes I had to run away to Tijuana to get street hormones. The feeling that I had at that point led me to attempt suicide, take drugs, and engage in sex work. At some point, I contracted HIV. However, I only learned this after I left foster care. I was never tested while I was in the system. Throughout this ordeal, the one bright spot in my life was my CASA volunteer who accepted and cared about me. Because of my experiences, I now serve as a peer specialist at a foster care agency and speak on panels as part of new social worker trainings. I did not receive the accurate or proper health care as a trans person in the system. I believe that this bill takes us a step closer in making sure that every trans person receives the medical and mental health they need to better themselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
You need it. My name is Renee Jacks. I'm a male to female post-operative transsexual. I've lived over 40 years of my life in this role, and I'm also author of 3 books. The one I'm researching right now on gender is on rapid onset of gender dysphoria in adolescents. Let me say I absolutely am against 2119. While I wholeheartedly believe that it's your intent to protect gender dysphoric children with this legislation, that neither science nor medicine yet fully understands the root cause of gender confusion, nor has there been enough research into the effects of puberty blockers and surgeries on gender dysphoric children to understand or forewarn us of any short and long-term consequences that this prospective legislation will cause. Whilst this legislation is well-meant, it holds the very real potential to harm more children than it helps by imposing medical treatments that are currently in question. While some doctors support gender affirmation of children's gender choice, others do not. There is not a universal consensus within the medical and therapeutic communities which supports any specific treatment models for gender dysphoric kids. We all only want the very best for our children. But I ask that you wait until we learn more about this rare condition before you enact legislation that would limit treatment options. Do not let social pressure force you to turn your sympathy and support for gender dysphoric kids into something that you and these children will live to regret. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next witness.
Thank you. Thank you, committee members and chair. My name is Dr. Michael Laidlaw. I'm an endocrinologist in Rockland, a gland and hormone specialist. I'd like to thank Mr. Gloria for caring about foster children, but I'm concerned about what's been left out of the analysis. What's missing is the medical view on what's been called affirmative care. Let's be clear what that is. Number one, powerful and dangerous hormones to block kids' normal puberty. Number two, high-dose, high-risk sex hormones with deadly blood clot and cancer risks. Number three, hazardous surgeries for boys to turn intestines into vaginas while destroying the penis and removing testicles. Number four, breast binders and mastectomies to destroy teenage girls' healthy breast tissue. Ovary and uterus removal ensuring sterility. This is all being done allegedly to stop trans child suicide, which is a good thing, but we can actually stop trans suicide by providing proper mental health care rather than this therapy. 70% of trans people have a mental health disorder now or in their lifetime leading to this risk, and risk of trans suicide is 19 times higher even with these hormones and surgeries. This is fundamentally different than speaking about gay or lesbian identifying kids, and this is why, the reason why. Doctors and psychologists have absolutely no way of diagnosing with certainty who is a true trans child and who has gender dysphoria confusion with underlying mental health and endocrine problems. They're certainly not born that way. This is different. Multiple recent studies have proven 80 to 95% of children and adolescents will actually grow out of their gender confusion. Proper treatment for foster kids with gender dysphoria involves psychological counseling and endocrine care. Additionally, I'll state here, in this state there are unethical and I would contend illegal experiments on human children occurring right now at UCSF and Children's Hospital Los Angeles. Because of affirming therapy, children are being sterilized, having sexual function permanently destroyed, acquiring lifelong health risks from hormones, and not being given proper psychological therapy, as you heard here earlier. I call for an investigation and I can cite federal laws that are being violated if we wish to know. Whatever good is intended in 2119, it is a mistake and will harm foster children, actually. I most strongly urge a no vote.
Thank you very much. Youth who are...
I have citations for that.
I understand. Could Assembly member or your two witnesses, could you respond to those numbers and your thoughts on that particular set of subjects about the mental health of our LGBTQ youth?
Well, let me try, Senator. I mean, it is accurate, as I mentioned in my testimony, that transgender youth are overrepresented in our foster care system. It is accurate that they experience higher levels of depression, anxiety, other mental health ailments, including attempted and successful suicides. I believe that actually is the full reason for this bill, Madam Chair. These children are often denied access to appropriate care. As you heard from our witness, being mistreated by her foster care parents, not being provided the kind of care that would support her, particularly as she sought to transition, is exactly why you would see children fall into depression and then take extreme measures. With this bill, these children would have access to culturally appropriate and culturally competent and appropriate care. This is giving them no special license. It's simply allowing them to work directly with a medical professional that can help them with these things. I would respectfully disagree with the characterization this is an imposition. It is not that at all. It's expressly stating in state law that they have the right to this kind of care, which I think will address the statistics that you're concerned by.
Thank you.